On Christmas Eve, my daughter stepped out of a taxi in the mild Austin evening. When I asked her where the Tesla was, my wife stepped forward and said she'd given it to her brother. The December air in Cedar Park carried that crisp edge that makes Texans think they're experiencing real winter. Our ranch-style house sat quiet under the string lights I'd hung the weekend before, the same routine I'd followed for 5 years now, ever since my first wife, Victoria, passed and left me figuring out how to keep Christmas magical for a teenage girl who'd lost her mom. Inside, the house smelled like the honey ham I'd been nursing in the oven, and the pine candles Melissa insisted on burning in every room. The artificial tree glowed in the corner of the living room, loaded down with ornaments that told the story of 2 different marriages. Victoria's delicate glass angels mixed with Melissa's modern silver baubles, creating a timeline you could read if you knew where to look. There was one ornament I always saved for last, a handmade star made from popsicle sticks and gold glitter, crooked as hell, but perfect in its imperfection. Sophia and Victoria had crafted it during a lazy Saturday afternoon when Sophia was 17, paint smeared on both their cheeks, Christmas music playing too loud. "It's our family star, Daddy," Sophia had announced, holding it up with sticky fingers. The glitter still sheds every December, leaving tiny sparkles on the carpet like breadcrumbs leading back to better days. I'd hung it at the top of the tree that afternoon, taking my time with the placement. "Your mom would have argued about the angle," I said to the empty room, knowing Sophia wouldn't arrive until evening, but talking to her anyway, the way I'd done for years. Sophia was supposed to drive down from UT in that white Tesla Model Y I'd surprised her with at graduation. That car wasn't just transportation. It was overtime pay and weekend sales calls and what remained of Victoria's 401k after the medical bills, all wrapped up in 75 kilowatt hours of battery and a promise that I'd keep taking care of our girl even when life tried to knock her sideways. The Tesla had cost $57,000. I remember the exact number because I'd stared at it for 20 minutes in the dealership, calculating and recalculating whether we could swing it. Victoria's 401k had $38,000 after taxes. My regional sales manager salary pulled down $85,000 a year, decent money that let me cover the remaining $19,000 without breaking us financially. But it wasn't about the money. It was about giving Sophia something that would keep her safe on Texas highways. Something that said, "Your father believes in your future." So, when my phone buzzed with her text at 6 p.m., I smiled, expecting to hear the whisper-quiet hum of electric motors in the driveway. Instead, when I opened the front door, a beat-up yellow cab was idling at the curb, exhaust visible in the cool air. My heart did that skip it does when something's wrong. For a second, I thought accident, breakdown, something mechanical. The cab door opened, and there was Sophia, bundled in her UT hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder, overnight bag in her hand. She handed the driver a crumpled 20 and jogged up the walkway. "Hey, sweetheart," I called from the porch. "Where's the Tesla?" She stopped halfway to the door, her expression flickering between confusion and something else, something that looked like embarrassment. She opened her mouth to answer. "I gave it to my brother," Melissa said behind me, her voice carrying that bright, helpful tone she used when she thought she was being reasonable. "Ryan needed it more." The words hung in the December air like smoke. I turned slowly. Melissa stood in the doorway in her red Christmas sweater, the one with the pearl buttons she'd bought specifically for tonight's community festival. Her blonde hair was freshly styled, her makeup perfect. Everything about her screaming suburban mom who had her life together. "You what?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "I gave it to Ryan," she repeated, like she was explaining why she'd picked up groceries. "His Honda finally died last week. He's got that big presentation with the Miller account coming up. He can't show up to close a deal in an Uber." Sophia stepped onto the porch, positioning herself between us like she'd done during too many of these conversations. "Dad, you gave him the car I bought for Sophia." I kept my eyes on Melissa. My hands had gone cold despite the warm air spilling from the house. Melissa sighed, the kind of patient exhale she used when she thought I was being difficult. "Cameron, you're thinking about this wrong. We're a family now. Family helps family. Ryan's trying to rebuild his business after the divorce. He needs to look successful to land clients. We're a family," I repeated her words, tasting them. "And where exactly does Sophia fit in that equation?" "Don't be dramatic," Melissa said, crossing her arms. Sophia's in college. She doesn't need a Tesla to get around campus. Ryan needs it to make a living. I looked past Melissa into the living room, at the tree glowing soft and steady. That crooked star caught the light and held it, the way it had every Christmas for 5 years. Victoria's star. Our star. Does Ryan know the titles in my name? I asked. Melissa's perfectly composed expression flickered. What does that matter? You bought it for the family. I bought it for my daughter. Each word came out precise, controlled. With money Victoria left behind, money meant for Sophia's future. Oh, here we go, Melissa muttered. Saint Victoria again. Something went very still inside me. The kind of stillness that comes right before you realize how badly you've been played. Sophia's eyes filled. Dad, I tried to tell her, Don't start, Sophia, Melissa cut her off. Your father would have agreed if he wasn't so possessive about money. Possessive about money. Victoria used to call it being responsible. We'd grown up watching our parents struggle with credit cards and car payments and the constant weight of debt. Victoria and I had sworn we'd do better, save smarter, leave something behind that mattered. Sophia, I said quietly, did you tell Ryan he could have your car? She shook her head, shoulders curling inward. I told Melissa. I told her I needed to ask you first. She said you'd already talked about it. She said it was your idea. I looked back at Melissa. Her jaw was set, but something in her eyes had shifted. I never said that. Well, Melissa said, shrugging. It's done now. Ryan's already got the car. We can discuss logistics after dinner. Don't ruin Christmas over a vehicle, Cameron. Sophia brushed past us into the house. As she walked by the tree, she reached out and touched that crooked star, just for a second, like she needed to feel something solid and real. I'm going to put my stuff in my room, she said, voice smaller than it should have been. I stayed on the porch, looking at our reflection in the front window. For 5 years, it had been just Sophia and me in that reflection during the holidays. Adding Melissa had felt like finally giving Sophia the complete family she deserved. Now, it felt like we'd let a stranger into our house. Well, I said, turning back to Melissa, I guess I'll have to pay Ryan a visit. That night, after Sophia went to bed, I sat in the dark living room with just the tree lights for company. The house was silent except for the heater cycling on every few minutes. Melissa had gone upstairs early, claiming she was done dealing with my attitude. I pulled out my phone and opened the Tesla app. Victoria would have laughed at the irony, her traditional husband learning to navigate smartphone apps to track down a stolen car. The map showed the Tesla parked at an apartment complex in North Austin, about 15 minutes from Ryan's insurance office. I took a screenshot, then scrolled through the recent activity. Supercharger visits, drive summaries, locations I didn't recognize. Ryan had been living it up in my daughter's car for over a week, but it was the bank notification that really got my blood moving. A transfer alert from 3 days ago. $8,000 moved from our joint savings to an account I didn't recognize. Another screenshot, another piece of evidence. $8,000. That was nearly 3 months of mortgage payments. It was Sophia's spring semester textbooks and her apartment deposit for next year. It was money Victoria had saved dollar by dollar, working double shifts as a nurse during Sophia's junior year of high school, always thinking about our daughter's future. I was done being the reasonable guy who kept the peace. The next morning, Christmas Day, I drove to Ryan's apartment complex. The Tesla sat in the parking lot like a white pearl among the older sedans and pickup trucks. Even parked, it looked expensive, sleek, like it belonged to someone who'd made smart choices in life. Ryan had done his homework. The car was locked, and he'd put one of those steering wheel clubs across the wheel, the kind designed to deter thieves. The irony wasn't lost on me. I walked around the car taking pictures with my phone. Fast food bags littered the passenger seat. A rumpled jacket lay across the dashboard, coffee stains on the white leather interior that I'd spent extra money on because Victoria had always talked about wanting a car with leather seats. "Hey!" a voice shouted from across the lot. "What are you doing to my car?" I turned to see Ryan jogging over, dressed in what he probably thought looked like success. Khakis, polo shirt, leather shoes that hadn't seen many actual work days. At 38, he had the soft look of a man who'd been coasting on charm longer than his looks could support it. "Your car?" I asked. "Yeah," Ryan said, slightly out of breath. "Melissa gave it to me." Fair and square. Melissa doesn't own this car, Ryan. I do. He laughed, actually laughed. Dude, you're being dramatic. It's just a car. Melissa said you guys had talked about it. I pulled out my phone and showed him the title documentation I'd photographed earlier. Cameron Henderson, I read aloud. That's my name on the title, Ryan, not yours, not Melissa's. His confidence wavered for about half a second. Then he shrugged. Take it up with your wife, man. That's between you two. But the car stays with me until you sort out your domestic issues. Domestic issues, I repeated. Is that what you call stealing? Ryan's face reddened. Nobody stole anything. Your wife gave me permission. My wife doesn't have the legal authority to give away property she doesn't own, I said calmly. But I'm sure you'll figure that out soon enough. I nodded slowly. Fair enough, Ryan. We'll see how this plays out. As I walked back to my truck, I could feel him watching me, probably wondering if I was bluffing. I wasn't, but Ryan would learn that soon enough. 2 days later, I was sitting in Stephen Brooks's law office downtown. Brooks was the kind of attorney Victoria would have liked. Straightforward, no nonsense. The type who charged fair rates and didn't waste time with legal theatrics. You've got a clear case, Brooks said after reviewing my documentation. Unauthorized use of a vehicle, unauthorized financial transfers. Your wife overstepped her legal authority. He slid a document across his desk. This is a formal demand letter. It requires Ryan to return the vehicle immediately or face civil and potentially criminal consequences. How do we serve it? I asked. Brooks smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he'd handled situations like this before. Ryan's planning to make an appearance at the Cedar Park Community Christmas Festival tonight. Big social event, lots of potential clients, perfect venue for a public service. My jaw tightened. He wants to show off. In your daughter's car, Brooks confirmed. But here's the thing about showing off, Cameron. Sometimes it backfires spectacularly. I spent the afternoon preparing. First, I called my bank and froze the joint account Melissa had used for the transfer. $8,000 was already gone, but I could prevent further damage. The representative, a patient woman named Jennifer, walked me through the process of establishing financial separation while maintaining legal protections. Mr. Henderson, Jennifer said carefully, I have to ask, are you considering divorce proceedings? I'm considering my options, I replied. It was an honest answer. 3 years of marriage to Melissa, and I was finally seeing what Sophia had probably recognized from the beginning. Melissa's loyalty would always belong to her brother first. Next, I called Sophia at her apartment near campus. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. Dad, is everything okay? Getting better, I said. I wanted you to know I'm handling the car situation legally. You'll have it back soon. There was a long pause. Then she said, Dad, I'm really sorry I didn't push back harder when Melissa said you'd agreed to it. Sweetheart, that's not your job. You shouldn't have to fight your stepmother for basic respect. I know, but I felt like I was causing problems between you two. You've never caused problems, I said firmly. You're my daughter. Protecting you isn't a problem. It's my purpose. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier. What do you need me to do? Just be ready to drive your car home tomorrow night. That evening, the Cedar Park Community Christmas Festival was in full swing. The city had transformed the main park pavilion into a winter wonderland, complete with string lights, hot chocolate stands, and a stage for local bands. Half the neighborhood was there, including most of Ryan's potential insurance clients. I positioned myself near the parking area with Brooks and Deputy Rodriguez, who'd volunteered to ensure everything stayed legal and peaceful. The plan was simple. Wait for Ryan to make his grand entrance, then serve the papers publicly and reclaim the Tesla using the remote access features I'd finally mastered. Remember, Brooke Ed, checking his watch, we're not here to humiliate anyone. We're here to reclaim stolen property. Right, I said. But if humiliation happened to be a side effect of justice, I wasn't going to lose sleep over it. At 7:30, the white Tesla pulled into the lot with the kind of dramatic flair that screamed, "Look at me." Ryan stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, with a date who looked appropriately impressed by his apparent success. He handed the valet key to a teenager with instructions to park it somewhere visible. That's when I pulled out my phone and opened the Tesla app. Ryan Palmer, Brooks called out, walking over with the legal documents. Ryan turned, his smile fading when he saw us approaching. "What's this about?" "You're being served," Brooks said formally, extending the papers. "Demand for immediate return of unlawfully possessed vehicle, plus restitution for unauthorized financial transfers." The conversation around us slowed, then stopped. People turned to watch. Ryan's date stepped back, confusion replacing her earlier admiration. "This is insane," Ryan said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Melissa gave me permission." "Melissa didn't have legal authority," Deputy Rodriguez said calmly. "The vehicle belongs to Mr. Henderson." I tapped the screen of my phone. The Tesla's lights flashed once, then the car made that soft chiming sound it makes when it's being activated remotely. "That's my car," I said loud enough for the growing audience to hear, "and I'm taking it back." Ryan looked from the papers to the car to the crowd that was now openly staring. "You can't just—" "I can," I said, walking toward the Tesla. "Because it's mine." The car unlocked as I approached. I opened the driver's door and slid into the seat, leaving the door open so everyone could hear me clearly. "Ryan, you've got 30 days to return the $8,000 you took from my account. After that, we let the courts sort it out." I started the car. The Tesla's silent operation somehow made the moment even more dramatic. No engine roar, no mechanical noise, just the quiet hum of justice being served. Sophia appeared at the passenger side. She must have driven down from Austin in a friend's car. "Room for one more?" she asked. "Always," I said. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of Ryan in the rearview mirror, standing there holding the legal papers while his date called for an Uber. "Dad," Sophia said as we turned onto the main road, "I'm proud of you." My throat tightened. "Your mom would have handled it better." "Mom would have told you to stand up for yourself years ago," Sophia said. "She would have loved watching that." We drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes, passing houses decorated with Christmas lights and families enjoying the holiday evening. The Tesla's cabin was quiet, peaceful, the way it was supposed to be. I could smell Sophia's familiar vanilla perfume mixing with the new car scent that Ryan's fast food habits hadn't quite managed to destroy. "What happens now?" Sophia asked. "Now we go home," I said, "and we figure out what comes next." "What about Melissa?" I thought about that for a moment, the question I'd been avoiding all day. Melissa's going to have to decide if she wants to be part of this family or if she wants to keep rescuing Ryan, but she can't do both. When we pulled into our driveway, the Christmas lights I'd hung were still glowing warm and steady. Inside, the tree waited with that crooked star catching the light at the top. Everything looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted. The house felt like ours again, mine and Sophia's. Melissa was sitting at the kitchen table when we walked in. Her makeup was smeared, her perfect hair disheveled. She looked up at us with red eyes that held more anger than shame. "The whole neighborhood's talking," she said quietly. "Good," I replied. "Ryan called. He's furious. He says you humiliated him in front of everyone." "Ryan humiliated himself," Sophia said, speaking up for the first time since we'd gotten home. "He was driving around in my car, spending Dad's money, acting like he'd earned something he stole." Melissa's face flushed. "Nobody stole anything, Sophia. I gave him permission." "You gave him permission to take something that wasn't yours," I said, hanging my keys on the hook by the door. "That's called theft, Melissa." She twisted her wedding ring, a gesture I'd learned meant she was trying to find the right words to make herself the victim. "Cameron, I was just trying to help my brother. He's been struggling since the divorce." "You helped him with money that wasn't yours," I said. "Money Victoria left behind. Money meant for Sophia." Her eyes filled with tears that might have been genuine. "I made a mistake." "You made a choice," I corrected. "You chose Ryan over Sophia. You chose your family over mine." Sophia headed upstairs, pausing at the bottom step. "I'm glad you got my car back, Dad, and I'm glad you didn't let her get away with it." After she disappeared down the hall, Melissa and I sat in silence for several minutes. The kitchen clock ticked steadily, marking time in a house that suddenly felt too small for the three of us. "So, what happens now?" she asked, echoing Sophia's question from the car. "Now, we figure out if you can learn to put this family first," I said, "or if you can't." "And if I can't?" I met her eyes directly. "Then we'll have a different conversation about our future." She nodded slowly, understanding the weight of what I'd said. Cameron, I didn't mean for things to get this bad. But they did get this bad, I replied, and now we both have to live with the consequences. The next morning, Melissa was gone when I woke up. Her suitcase was missing from the closet, and there was a note on the kitchen counter saying she was staying with her mother for a few days to think things through. Sophia came downstairs around 10, still in her pajamas, and found me making coffee. She left? She asked, reading the note. Temporarily, it looks like. How do you feel about that? I considered the question seriously. Relieved, honestly. The house feels peaceful again. Sophia poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down across from me. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you marry her? It was a fair question, one I'd been asking myself since Christmas Eve. Because I thought you needed a complete family. Because I thought I was being selfish, keeping you all to myself. You were never selfish, she said firmly. You were enough. You've always been enough. The words hit me harder than I expected. For 5 years, I'd carried the guilt of being a single parent, wondering if I was shortchanging Sophia by not giving her a traditional family structure. But sitting there in our quiet kitchen, watching my daughter sip her coffee with the confidence of someone who knows she's loved unconditionally, I realized something important. Some families aren't traditional. Some families are just a father and daughter who take care of each other. And that's not broken. That's complete. So, what do we do now? Sophia asked. Now we clean up the mess, I said. Legally, financially, emotionally. We figure out what we want our life to look like. Without Melissa? That depends on whether she can accept that you come first, I said. Whether she can understand that this family existed before she joined it, and it'll exist after she's gone if necessary. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Whatever happens, we'll be okay. I squeezed back. Yeah, kiddo, we will. Outside, the Tesla sat in our driveway where it belonged, white paint gleaming in the morning sun. It was just a car, but it represented something more, the promise that love doesn't compromise, that family protects its own, and that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is showing them they're worth fighting for. 3 days later, Stephen Brooks called with an update. Ryan had contacted his office, demanding to negotiate the financial restitution. He's offering to pay back $6,000 instead of the full $8,000, Brooks told me over the phone. Says he spent some of the money on necessary business expenses. I was sitting in my home office, looking through Victoria's old financial planning notebooks. She'd been meticulous about our goals, our savings targets, our dreams for Sophia's future. Every dollar had meant something to her. What kind of business expenses? I asked. Dinner dates, apparently, high-end restaurants where he was entertaining potential clients. In other words, he was using my money to impress women while driving my daughter's car. That's about the size of it. I closed Victoria's notebook and made my decision. No deal, $8,000 or we go to court. You sure? Court could drag this out for months. I'm sure. Some things aren't negotiable. That afternoon, Sophia and I drove the Tesla to get it detailed. The service technician, a young guy named Pete, shook his head when he saw the interior. Whoever had this car didn't respect it much, he said, pointing out the coffee stains, fast food grease, and cigarette burns I hadn't noticed before. This is going to take some work. Whatever it costs, I told him, make it perfect. While we waited, Sophia and I walked around the shopping center, grabbing lunch and talking about her spring semester plans. She was majoring in business administration, following a path that would have made Victoria proud. Smart, focused, independent, everything we'd hoped she'd become. Dad, she said as we sat outside a coffee shop, can I ask you something personal? Shoot. Do you think you'll ever get married again? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask? Because I want you to be happy. But after watching what happened with Melissa, she trailed off, stirring her latte thoughtfully. I guess I want to make sure you know you don't need someone else to complete our family. When did you get so wise? I asked. I had a good teacher, she said, smiling. We picked up the Tesla later that afternoon. Pete had worked miracles. The interior looked and smelled brand new, every trace of Ryan's occupancy erased. As we drove home, I felt something settle in my chest. This was how things were supposed to be, just the two of us, taking care of each other, moving forward together. The call came that evening while Sophia was packing for her return trip to Austin. Melissa's voice was smaller than usual, tentative. Cameron, I've been thinking about what you said. And I want to come home. I want to try counseling. I sat down heavily in my chair. Melissa, counseling can't fix what happened. It can't undo the choices you made. But it could help us learn to communicate better. The communication wasn't the problem, I said gently. The problem was priorities. The problem was loyalty. The problem was you giving away something precious that belonged to my daughter without a second thought. She was quiet for a long moment. So you're saying it's over? I'm saying some things can't be fixed. Some trust, once broken, doesn't heal. Because of Ryan? Because of everything Ryan represents, your inability to say no to him, your willingness to sacrifice our family's needs for his wants, your assumption that I'd just go along with whatever you decided. Another silence. Then, Cameron, I love you. I know you do, in your way, but love isn't enough when it comes with conditions and divided loyalties. After we hung up, I found Sophia standing in the doorway. She'd heard enough to understand. You okay? She asked. Getting there. She sat down on the arm of my chair. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Yeah? Mom always said you were the most loyal person she knew. She said you'd never ask someone to choose between you and their family because you'd never put them in that position in the first place. Victoria had said that, back when we were dating and my own family. Had given her a hard time about not being Catholic. I'd stood up to them, made it clear that accepting Victoria was non-negotiable. It had caused a rift that took years to heal, but I'd never regretted it. Melissa would have made you choose eventually, Sophia continued. Between her and Ryan, or her and me, she couldn't help herself. You think? I know, and you would have chosen family, real family, the people who choose you back. The next morning, Sophia loaded her overnight bag into the Tesla's trunk. The car looked perfect again, white and pristine, ready to carry my daughter safely through whatever came next. Drive careful, I told her, the same words I'd said every time she left since she got her license. Always do, she replied, the same response she'd given every time. But this time, she added something new. Dad, thanks for fighting for us. As I watched the Tesla disappear down our street, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on everyone keeping their word or nobody rocking the boat. The solid kind that comes from knowing you've protected what matters most. My phone buzzed with a text from Stephen Brooks. Ryan agreed to full restitution. Check in the mail. I smiled and went inside to start my day. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is showing them they're worth fighting for. Sometimes the best Christmas present is simply taking back what was always yours. And sometimes family isn't about who you marry or who moves into your house. Sometimes family is just the people who choose you back, day after day, year after year. The people who understand that love without loyalty is just a word. The people worth fighting for.